record shit, but I'm new enough to be casted as an extra man. You're moonwalking and I'm smooth walking to the top. You bitches lose too long. If it ain't hard, I got it subtract on a multiplication, division and rapid. Put it together and now you will have it. That's what they like to call simple mathematics. They ain't supporting, but I am at it. Don't need a step before I'm trying to be. I ain't part of the four, but I just like a life. I ain't part of the four, but they call me fantastic. They had it stand a long time, just like Jurassic. Ain't been here a long time, but I'm still a classic. I was off the track, taking it martial arts. They may not do the L's, but your brother's spicy to say the niggas get you best for your farm. Or raise the place up with your miss, cause the tape on the big no I'm
I got a lot.
And they know I've been really stars. Drawing pics with my lyrical art. Look like this touch on the card. And it's just a start. Oh my God. Paper thing, I'm a shit all your part. Smoking no dope and it seems like a fart. You told me sour face, body so tired. After my chest, Superman shit, your mind is fucked. Go call me Clark. You watching? Sick when I drop my shit. You watching? Don't make these hoes laugh. You watching? I'm going right there. Did it stop? I'm a last forever at the start. Did it start back? I don't go, but then this person just not up to par. And I know that I'm gonna make it far. I'm the target, they throwing the darts. I'm a beast when I show my. I'm frozen in the dark. Just be playing like I'm in the park. Think I want a nigga, bitch. How you figure? Coulda had him, but he is a narc. Bitches jocking my moves, imitating my moves, but I wanna let these hoes make me lose my cool. The name is Sin, baby, scream it if it's true. Go try and play me, just see what I do. Bitches jocking my moves, imitating my moves. Sometimes I feel like losing my cool. I ain't got shit to prove, but I got shit to lose, so I can't go around making it fun. If I break the rules, the big bro got the tool, and he let that shit go like a fan. So they come in the suit, so y'all best to say two big bodies, so y'all better make. Bitches jocking my moves, imitating my moves. Sometimes I feel like losing my cool. I ain't got shit to prove, but I got shit to lose, so I can't go around acting a fool. But if y'all read the rules, the big bro got the tool, and he let that shit go like a boom. So they come in the suit, so y'all best to say two big bodies, so y'all better make.
Ready to pray? Hello everyone, welcome to podcast number 8. Today we're going to start, we're going to have a discussion about landlord-tenant issues. This is specific to the state of New Jersey because landlord-tenant is state-specific, meaning that what applies in New Jersey may not apply in another state, and we're out of New Jersey, so that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm eating this, I'm sucking on this lollipop because I cursed before. So Hamid was kind enough to point that out and gave me my piece of candy.
We need to introduce us.
I'm Cynthia.
I'm Hamid.
And we're going to, should we do our mission statement now, or should we get right into what we're talking about? You want to do the mission statement at the end or now?
No, the mission statement, to give them an idea, what direction we going.
Well, come on, Miss Passport. I think I need a piece of
Shakira.
candy for that.
Shakira.
Come on, Shakira. Come on, tell us about our mission statement.
She remember.
And give them our number that I messed up.
Hello, everybody. The call-in number is 973-877-3737. Beyond Reasonable Doubt podcast is a visual podcast series focusing on the legal system as it impacts and infiltrates our everyday existence. Our mission is to free our minds through sharing knowledge and experiences in order to promote knowledge, awareness, inspiration, and self-love.
Thank you. Where you do that, Hamid? Come on now. I know. You don't too much. Play fiend. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you. And you didn't tell them where we're broadcasting live on Facebook at Beyond Reasonable Doubt series, and on Instagram at what is it?
Twin Reed Street.
And on Instagram at BYRD Podcast. So they can hear that. What's that mean? Oh, okay. So now I want to talk about, before when we were doing this, we were talking about the responsibility that we think that entertainers or celebrities or people with a platform, a huge platform, how they need to watch what they say because it may present the wrong message. And we talked about Meek Mills when he said that if you get shot, you're going to violate your parole, and how that was not quite accurate. We talked about colorism and all the Love and Hip Hop franchises where they are sending out a message that to us, was kind of not fully accurate. So I want to talk about something that I saw, and it pertains to Plies. I don't know if y'all listen to rap music, but Plies is a rapper, and a rapper who I happen to love. However,
oh, you like Plies?
I do like Plies. You like Plies?
I don't have no favorite rappers.
Well, do you like him? His music, not
yeah,
him personally.
I like some of his music.
Okay, so what we're going to call this, and maybe you can pinpoint some instances where you think that this is appropriate. But what I call it is irresponsible social messaging, and for short, I'm going to call it an ism. So this ism is pertains to Plies in his song "The Ritz-Carlton," and it's kind of specific to me as a lawyer, as a black female lawyer who's been around for a while. And he says,
are you reading the
yes, this is the Plies lyrics. "The Ritz-Carlton" is the name of the song, and this is the line that I take issue with. He says, all this ice. Well, actually, I'm going to read the first line before. He says, all this ice, I'm my own jeweler, 6 lawyers, and they're all Jewish. So, do you think anything, does that strike you in any way, one way or the other, something about that particular statement?
What's the difference from a Jewish lawyer to oppose a black lawyer?
Or any other lawyer. So, my point is this, it's fine if you want to have all Jewish lawyers, all 6 of them, that's your business. But when you put it in a rap for everybody to hear, and you put it in a way such that you're kind of saying that you made it, you're doing well, and part of the reason that you made it, or because you made it, all your lawyers are Jewish. Well, that's, to me, is sending out a message that's contrary to all of us lawyers who are not Jewish, who are out there working hard, struggling, trying to make a living, and you, Plies, decide that you want to make a song and direct everyone's attention to Jewish lawyers just because they're Jewish. I think that's highly irresponsible, and I, for one, because I am in the category of a non-Jewish lawyer, will say that is an ism that you should be aware of when you write your songs and your lyrics, because even though your Jewish lawyers might be great, there's some other non-Jewish lawyers out there, namely myself, who are also good and who also will fight for your money and fight for your case and do a good job for you. So you're doing me a disservice, Plies, even though I love you. I love you. I love you.
So you taking offense to this?
I don't know if it's offense. I think that maybe he didn't realize that or he might be insensitive to the issue. Or somebody has told him that if you want a good lawyer, he or she has to be Jewish. I don't know. So it's not offense, but in line with our mission is to enlighten ourselves and free our minds. That is a message that can be conveyed. He's just writing a song, but he's conveying a message inadvertently or on purpose. I don't know, but that's an ism that we should try to stay away from.
And the ism is short for what?
It's I forgot already what I said. Irresponsible social messaging. Irresponsible social messaging. Okay. So now that I got that off my chest, we can move on to our topic of the day, and that's tenants' rights in New Jersey. Now, I gave you a book or a pamphlet. You guys can go online and get this yourself. It's not, I didn't write it, somebody else wrote it, but it's very informative and it tells you all the ins and outs of landlord-tenant rights. So can you put that up on the screen and show them if they can see it? I don't know if you guys can see it or not. If you Google, this is Tenants' Rights in New Jersey. It's a legal manual. You got to put it for the camera too on Facebook. It's a legal manual for tenants in New Jersey. And it was written and published by Legal Services of New Jersey. I believe it's updated to 2014. And it goes through the whole litany of things that you may need to know if you have a landlord-tenant issue.
Yeah, that's the rules, people. This the rules.
Now, we didn't write this. I'm just
treated foul. And now we got the book. Okay.
Just directing your attention to this book. We didn't write it. We have nothing to do with it. I just went online and I read it, and it seemed to be a comprehensive book or pamphlet, and you too can go online and Google it, and the table of contents is divided up into sections, and you could look and see which issue relates to you. So I got it on here.
And this applies to all landlords in the state of New Jersey?
It defines what a landlord is, and it applies to landlords, and it applies to tenants. So we're going to go through some of the things, but first, y'all, anybody want to share their worst landlord-tenant experience? Me, I got one. You got one, Hamid? You got one, Shakira? Oh gosh, we all got them. Preem? Oh Lord. Okay, so let's try to. I want to tell my story. I need to speak on this. So I got so many
I got a few more.
terrible landlord-tenant stories. I have 5 children.
Well, prior to you being a homeowner.
Well, you ain't got to tell all my business, but
you was a tenant.
Okay. He got a big mouth. What if I didn't want y'all to know that I own my own home? Okay, so
Accomplishment.
before I was a homeowner, I had 5 kids, and I still got 5 kids. So you could imagine what it's like trying to rent a place with 5 kids. It's ridiculous. So I've always tried to let my kids have their own space, so that they could, do what they want to do in their own rooms and everything. So a lot of times I would rent a house. But it's very frustrating because if shit go... Oh, see, now you do too much. Just one. And don't give me no lollipop because I ain't putting them both in my mouth, darn it. So if stuff goes wrong, you can't, you fixing it, but it's not your place. So you're putting money into something that you don't own. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I have 3 experiences I'm gonna tell y'all about. My first experience is, I had to move my kids from a roach. I lived in an apartment building, and my neighbors, the ones right next to me, had roaches. And when I tell you they had roaches, and you know how I feel about roaches,
we had a roach incident, but we gotta go discuss that.
Don't tell every damn thing.
I'm not. I said, go ahead.
So anyway, the people had roaches, right? So it was so bad that they were coming into my house and they were getting into. I remember. I'll never forget it. I had a deep fryer, and I saw the damn ain't no curse word. Damn is not a curse word. See, I might curse a little bit more while I'm telling this story because it's emotional to my heart. It's to my heart. But anyway, I saw the roach crawling up in the little timer thing where it tell you the time and the temperature and all that. A roach inside of that. So I complained so many times to the landlord about this. One, it's glitching. The second to the last time, is it glitching? The second to the last time, they relocated us. They sent us to a hotel. Y'all remember this something in Trinity? Oh well, no, you don't remember this. You weren't even born yet, girl. You wasn't even here. So this was out. I had 4 kids at this time, not 5. The other one came later. She was a big surprise. Anyway, we had to be relocated to a hotel while they fumigated. Right? They fumigated. They made them people throw all their stuff out, everything. Let me tell you, one time I had knocked on their door for whatever reason. The roach was crawling up the wall as I was opening the door talking to them. I swear. I don't know. They was nice people, but I don't. So anyway, so we got, so they got fumigated. So I'm like, okay, things should be fine, right? Moved back in. Not a month later, the same problem. So I contacted the landlord and I said, look, we moving. We moving, not in a month, you don't get no more chances, we gone. We was in a lease, right? But the other people, this is the funny part, we were paying market rent, me and my family, and so were the roach people. So they didn't want to get rid of either one of us.
That's what you call them, roach people?
That's what the hell they were, all them darn roaches. You got roaches like that, you got to be a fan. They got to be cousins, I don't know. That's got to be your cousin. Them family members, if you got them like that.
They was paying market rent, and so was the roaches.
The roaches was paying market rent too. We both was paying. We always paying market rent.
So you didn't get to know who their names was because you was upset that they roaches.
Man, no, and they were. I don't mean to make light of whatever was going on, but they seemed like they were older couple. So I don't know, but all I know, I ought not to have to suffer because of your roaches. So anyway, we left, right? So I was in the middle of trial. So when we packed, I didn't even get no boxes. We packed in garbage bags. We did. Is that ratchet? We packed.
At the time, it probably wasn't.
Well, I wasn't.
Changed now, so
it was ratchet. Yeah, we had big old garbage bags. I ain't ashamed of it because we was getting out of there. So I ain't have time to pack the boxes in a nice little thing. Everybody put y'all stuff in the bag. I was in the middle of trial. I ain't had time for none of that, okay? So I hope I ain't embarrassing my kids. But anyway, hey, Niecy Pooh. So anyway, that was my first story, right? Second,
I ended.
No, I'm about to do all mine in the stream. You ain't even gotta worry about it. And then you can tell yours. Then we moved. No. Listen. So we moved into the new apartment. Everybody put their bags in their room, and I didn't have time. It was like maybe the second day, so we hadn't unpacked nothing. Everybody was living out of these bags because I was on trial. And for trial, you understand when you're on trial or when I'm on trial, don't nothing else matter but that trial. So I wasn't trying to do nothing else but focus on what I was doing. It could have been your trial. But anyway, I was on trial. Whose ever trial it was, I'm gonna let you know I was focusing on your stuff.
Yeah.
So
hope you won.
But of course I won. I ain't gonna say I always win, but I know I won that one.
Yeah.
The landlord went into my house. This is number 2. Kids didn't know no better and took pictures of all them bags and came back later and tried to use it against me and say my house was filthy. I ain't know she took them pictures, but when we had a subsequent issue, she brought them up. I said, you went in my house and you took pictures? I said, where was I? I wasn't there. Yeah, she was already being slick. A black lady. That's number 2. Oh, I'm gonna tell y'all 4. So after I got tired of her ass, and go on give me my candy. After I got tired, we might not have no hour.
It don't look like I was stirring me for this.
After I got tired of her ass, then I moved to, I was offered, thank you, to move to a single family house from a supposed friend of mine. A friend of mine. You know who you are.
There's nobody in this room, right?
No. He might not even be alive right now. You know who you are. So anyway, we moved over there to my friend's place. He raised the rent by $100 after 6 months. We wasn't even there a year yet. Then, when I refused to pay it. No, I paid it the first time. Then a few months later, he raised it again, another $100. So I refused to pay it this time. So he took me to landlord-tenant court.
How that play out?
Well, let me tell you what he did. The note, there was I don't know the specifics, but you know when they put that notice on your door to let you know whatever it was?
We are familiar with that.
Yeah. He took it off. The neighbors told me later on. So I didn't know anything about all of this. Oh, I'm going to tell you what he did. I paid the rent. I didn't pay that extra $100. So I thought we were good. But he went to court behind my back, got that judgment against me, then they posted, he knew the sheriff person. You know the sheriff posted shit on your door.
Yeah.
Did you put them all in your mouth at the same time?
Well, I could, but I ain't.
The box right here by the legs.
I could. It's possible. But anyway, so he came, he did all that. He put it on the his little friend sheriff put it on the door when I was at work, and they took it off. The neighbor told me later. So then, next thing I know, the sheriff knocking at my door. The next, whatever day it was, me knowing nothing, I had, at that time, my oldest daughter, Erin, and I had my baby, Trini. And I was about to drop Erin off to school because she was always late for school, and then I was going to work. I come home and going to work. I had my sweats on. When he came, the sheriff locked us out. I had to go out to go to landlord-tenant court that day in my sweats with my babies, Erin and Trini, and get a stay. And the man said he can't kick you out because you didn't pay the $100. I said, I know that. I said, he took the sign off. He said, all right, well, they got to let you back in. So then I called the judge to let the judge know what was happening.
Oh, you had direct contact to the judge?
The chambers, we all could call. So he said, landlord-tenant court on my own personal stuff. I'm here, but I ain't dressed. He said, come to court anyway. So I went on the record in my sweats with my babies.
You had babies in that court too?
The babies were on the outside of the court.
Yeah. Trini was riding.
That's number 3. Number 4 is the place in Montclair, the place that I lived right before I got my house. 2 years with no heat because the oil was seeping into the damn ground. In the freezing cold, I was throwing money in there, and I told the judge, I said, listen, something is wrong. I can't keep no heat. It keeps going into the ground. And I couldn't prove it. But when I left there, a couple years later, I saw the house was on the market, and they were listing all the stuff that was wrong with it. And one of the things was oil contamination in the ground. And whoever purchased it had to remedy that before they could sell the house. Them my 4 stories. Where yours at?
Oh, I'm not going to be the one to go second.
Who gonna go second? Don't everybody jump up all at once. When?
Can't remember.
You don't got one that really stick out in your mind?
Shakira?
My friends said.
Can you share?
Mine is sad, but I'm ready.
Well, you gonna make us cry?
No, I'm not gonna cry.
We almost cried with yours.
Oh, did you? I was crying. You almost cried. I cried.
It's sensitive when you gotta drag your kids along.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's like, don't do me like, do me. I can deal with it by myself, but I gotta drag my kids. It's
bad.
Personal. Yeah.
Go ahead, Shakira. She can't tell her story over there. She gotta tell her story on the air. Girl, don't make me cry over here.
No, I'm not gonna make you cry. I have a thing too. This was pertaining to my grandmother passing. The house was left to all my mother's siblings because 6 days after my grandmother passed, my mother passed. And once we already had a tenant already in the house, so it was cool. It was a bad transition because of her. Well, at least I faulted her. because my mother came back to the house once my grandmother died. She, my mother had the key to the main apartment upstairs, which she occupied on the second floor, and the tenant was the occupant on the first floor. So she let my mother in. My mother had the key to go upstairs to the second floor. She called the cops and said it was a robbery in progress.
Oh.
So now my mom get locked up. We don't know what's going on. We don't know where she at. All we know that she went to East Orange to get some important documents because my grandmother passed away. So from there, long story short, I'm gonna cut through the whole chase. Was out just, oh my god.
I remember.
Anyway, the tenant, it was kind of hard to keep her in, but because she was an older lady, her brother was crippled. I tried to put my personal feelings to the side, and I said, okay, let's see how this go, and we're gonna keep her here and see how this go. I really didn't want her there at all, but I was nice. I didn't do anything, I didn't show her personally how I felt, but I wanted to badly. And once we, a few months went by, my grandfather found out that my grandmother had passed. So he had came up from Florida, and she was talking to him. She let him in. He changed all the locks to the front door, to the back door, to the apartment upstairs. And I believe they broke into that because she didn't have the key to the second floor. And it was crazy because I had to go there, had to call the cops, had to get the cops involved. And it's crazy when people don't want to respect you. And it's like, I took out the consideration of what you did to my mom, and that led to her death. So it was really hard for me to really deal with this lady. And because of her age, I think that's the only reason why I dealt with her. But with her changing the lock, letting my grandfather come in and change the lock, everything just went haywire. So I immediately set up for her to get evicted. She was,
you're
trying
talking
to
about
talk
from
to
the
me.
landlord perspective.
Yeah, I'm talking from
I
a
was
landlord.
talking from the tenant
I'm talking
perspective.
from a landlord's perspective.
And tenant and the landlord.
Both sides, yeah.
And it's not good when the person doesn't respect you. And no matter how you come into play, of how you get a house or whatever, it should be some line of respect. And especially if you know what you're doing, it's certain lines that you just can't cross. I don't care how you don't like the situation or how somebody came across the situation. It's basically none of your business. But I had to evict her, and it was sad because, like I said, she was an older lady. Her brother was crippled in a wheelchair, and I just had to say,
did they pay their rent?
They did. She paid her rent on time.
You sound like what was the problem then with her?
Yeah. I thought
girl, you must get your piece of cake.
Wait a minute, I'm fasting. I can't even eat no candy.
You can't. Listen. You gotta get it. You don't have to eat it.
Okay, listen. She let my grandfather and my grandmother been divorced for years. My grandmother did some old slick stuff, like she didn't even, let him know what was going on because he just wanted money. So she got the divorce. It was granted. He was cut loose from everything. He was with a whole nother lady, whole new relationship, everything. So he didn't know that much. All he knew was she wasn't in contact with him when he contacted her for, I guess, some money. And so he came up all the way from Florida. Mind you, he wasn't up for 20-something years.
Wait, so you were mad because she let your grandfather, who hadn't been around, in the house?
And not only in the house, she let this man change the locks to the house.
The whole house?
The whole house. The back door, the front door, her door.
Prior to that, you already had a problem with her.
I did have a problem with her,
personal problem.
But I put my personal to the side because she was older and her brother was crippled.
But you can't. But just
she was paying her rent though.
Right. She was paying her rent on time. But you know what? Let me tell you. When it get to the point to where you don't respect me, and you feel like, listen, she totally violated by letting. She didn't know that man. She didn't even know if that was my grandfather.
That's
who
still not
was
enough.
you? Okay, but who was she to make that judgment to say I'm gonna let this man come in here because he say he the grandfather. He say he owns this house. I'm gonna let him change all the locks to the house.
Well,
who was she to do that?
I'm not trying to prosecute you.
Listen,
Well,
it don't even matter.
Okay, come get your. We're going to talk about the law on that, cause Shakira, listen, you cannot.
Well, she got evicted.
Hold up,
Yeah,
you're not supposed to. I ain't gonna say wrong. I ain't gonna say wrong.
Okay.
But we're gonna tell y'all what the law is on that. Now, come on, tell us your story.
I'm
I got another one.
No, you don't, because we only got 30 minutes left, and we ain't told nobody no law. So
Listen.
let us do the law
Well,
first,
we're
and
going
then
to the paperwork.
and then you come back at the end with your.
Cause
No.
Man, listen, she was out of there. I gave her I gave her notice. Listen,
Come in, please.
You outta
here.
here. She was out of there.
I'm gonna get you.
Okay. So do you want to tell your story? Because
Nah, we gonna get to the law.
I know you got one bad story. Cream, like, he flaked on us. Cream said he just gonna play his music and we can't hear his story.
Y'all ain't want to hear my story.
Nah, we gonna get back to you.
Well, what we gonna do right now is we gonna talk about the causes for eviction. New Jersey is an anti-eviction state, which means that you can only evict for certain causes. One of them is not because you got a personality conflict.
It wasn't a personality.
That's how it was. That's how it worked. That's how it was brought to the table.
Okay, let me tell y'all what the ways are. You know, this is only half of the book. It's a whole bunch of more.
The causes for eviction.
The causes, and you can look in this book that I'm telling you. I'm reading right out of the book that I referred to you, so you can look and see for yourself what the causes of eviction are. Number 8, and it starts on page 67 in my on my laptop. Not paying rent. You got to pay your rent.
Let's
general,
turn it down a notch so we can hear this clear.
In general, you have to pay your rent. There's some circumstances where you can withhold rent. You can withhold rent for reasons that this this pamphlet has in chapter 6. Tells you reasons that you can hold rent if they're not making necessary repairs. But I'll get back to that later. I'm just going to try to move past this. So if you don't pay your rent, the landlord can move to evict you and does not have to give you any notice. So they don't have to send you something that says pay your rent or else. They don't have to. They could just go in and this says notices are required. No notices are required except where the tenant resides in federally subsidized housing, like in a public housing. It says you have to have 14 days notice. But if you're just a regular person renting, they don't have to give you no notice. You got to pay your rent. You can't. And I'm speaking from the landlord's perspective because I've been in both situations, tenant and landlord. Sometimes y'all think y'all ain't got to pay y'all rent once y'all get inside of the property. You got to pay your rent. Nobody can live rent free. Then B, disorderly conduct that disturbs other tenants. So if you are acting a fool or whatever you do, making noise and disturbing everybody's peace and quiet, you can be asked to leave. First, in this circumstances, you have to get a notice to cease first. They have to tell you first to stop it. And then you have to, if you don't stop it or it continues, then you get the notice to quit. And that has to be served, this thing says, at least 3 days before filing an eviction suit. So before you can go to landlord-tenant court and file for eviction on a disorderly conduct that disturbs other tenants, you have to send them a notice to cease and a notice to quit. The landlord has to send that to the tenant, and it has to be they have to have some type of proof that they sent it. They can't just tell you it over the phone. C, if you damage or destruct the landlord's property. So maybe that falls close to yours, Chikara. You felt like by letting people just, the grandfather or whomever come in who hadn't been in there in years, come and change locks and do all of that. Maybe that's part of that particular.
And she gave him the rent, and he cashed the check too.
Oh, and then she gave him the rent, and he cashed the check. Well, that's grounds too if she didn't pay the rent to you. But anyway.
Prior to that, she had issues with her.
There has to be a notice to quit under damage or destruction of landlord property. Because I remember you had a situation where somebody took out the washing machine. Was that the same lady?
No,
that was somebody else. Oh yeah. So if they do destroy your property, take the stove and all that, you got to do a notice to quit 3 days before going to landlord-tenant court. The conduct, it must be intentional or grossly negligent. So that means that, if they kick holes and punch holes in all the walls in the apartment, then that counts. D, violation of landlord rules and regulations. That applies to you as well. For a violation of landlord rules and regulations, which would be found in the lease, the rules and regulations, the landlord has to give you a notice to cease and a notice to quit. And it must be served on the notice to quit must be served on the tenant at least 1 calendar month before filing the eviction suit. So you have certain requirements that have to be met before you can do that for a violation of landlord rules and regulations. Hold on one second. E, violation of the lease agreement is D. You have to get a notice to cease and a notice to quit. That must be served on the tenant at least 1 month before filing an eviction suit. E2 says violation of public housing, lease agreement provisions prohibiting the illegal use of drugs or other illegal activities. You got to get a notice to quit for that. You don't have to get a notice to cease for that. The notice to quit must be served on the tenant in a reasonable amount of time before filing the eviction suit. And there's a whole separate list of stuff that you have to do if you're in public housing for the landlord to evict you. You can get evicted.
But their restrictions are a little bit more harsh, right?
Well, then you got to go by HUD rules, the housing complex rules, and all kinds of rules you have to go by that are beyond what people go by if they're just a normal renter.
Yeah, so it's more intense on them.
They got a lot of stuff that you got to do. You got to report your income. Every time you get a change, you got to report it. Every time you turn around, you got to do something. They all up in.
If you have additional kids.
Yeah, if you add somebody, you got to let them know. You got to let them know everything. If you
I don't think I'm interested in public housing anymore.
Why? You don't want to tell them all your business?
Nah, I don't want nobody that far in my business.
Well, there's a whole bunch of stuff.
People asking me for my bank statements.
Oh, and they get to look at your taxes. They get to do a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, F, not paying a rent increase.
Butthole inside out.
What?
I'd rather say it like that than the 8.
You need some candy for that. Come on now. What are you talking about? You need some candy for that.
Nah, that's not part of the agreement. It said cussing.
That's like a curse word to me. I can't even conceive of how that even works.
Don't take that candy.
Don't take that candy. Not paying a rent increase. You can if there's 1 month notice to end the tenancy and notice of the rent increase. So if you come at the end of your lease and they want to increase your rent, they got to tell you. If you don't pay the increase or you don't agree to it, they could take you to landlord-tenant court. And most towns have a cap on what the rent raising can be, but you have to look into your own municipality for that.
So for a landlord to just say, you paid late, I'm putting $100 fee on it. You can't do that. It got to go by the county.
No.
And the lease agreement is going to say what your late fee is.
Yeah, but because it's a late fee in the lease agreement, doesn't mean that it's a valid.
Does it become rent?
Yeah, nah, like
it is
say
valid. If the lease agreement in your lease agreement, it says that your late fee is $35, $65, or $100. If you pay your rent late, that has to be attached to your late rent.
Okay, now could the landlord, do he have a standard of how far he can go with the late fee or the late rent? Like, could he say, "Oh, I'm putting $100 late fee on this, and they got to give it to me"?
It's in your rent. It's in your lease agreement.
Yeah, but
due on the 1st.
I understand that. What I'm trying to say is, can a landlord he have to go by the county rules on a late fee status, or he could just make up whatever number that he want under that?
Say after the 5th or after the 10th.
No, you talking about the amount.
The amount, yeah, the amount.
So after the 5th, you're late.
No.
So after the 10th.
No, say he just want to say, I'm gonna put in the lease, if they pay late, I'm gonna put a $100 late fee in.
I believe if they can put something that's reasonable.
Reasonable, yeah. That's what I'm saying. It don't mean that just because he said it like that you have to agree to that.
No, you do.
No, you don't. You gotta have some. You can't just go up to. So you can say I'm putting $150 late fee.
My man, it's in the lease when you first rent the place. If you rent it for a year, they're gonna tell you how much your rent is, and they're gonna tell you how much your late fee would be. He can't come in later, like 6 months in, and say, "Oh
Like,
no, it's gonna be $200." No, like what happened to me? No, he cannot do it. They cannot do that. No.
But is it a standard amount on the late fee that he had?
I don't believe. I'm going to look into that to make sure, but I think it just has to be reasonable.
Yeah.
There is a standard on how much security deposit that they can charge. They can't charge more than a month and a half.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The same thing with the late fee. It has to be a standard amount that he has to go by. I don't know if he has to follow the county.
I don't think that there is
or
a standard amount. But the next time I'll let you know for sure. But I don't think that is the case. Hold on, let me. Where were we at? They can ask you to leave if there's a house or health code violation, and that means that the landlord needs to tear the place down, or something is going on where they can't rent it anymore. They have to give you a notice. They have to give you a notice to quit, and it must be served on the tenant at least 3 months before filing the eviction suit. Landlord wants to permanently retire the building from residential use. They don't want to rent no more. They have to do a notice to quit, and they have to give you at least 18 months notice. Not accepting changes in the lease. Notice to quit must be served on the tenant at least 1 month before filing the eviction suit. So if you don't want to pay that extra increase in rent, then they got to give you a notice to quit. Paying rent late habitually. If you always late with your rent, that's a ground for eviction. But you got to get a notice to cease first, and then you got to get a notice to quit at least 1 month before filing the eviction suit.
So they could evict you for just paying late all the time.
Yeah, if you continuously pay late after they tell you stop paying late, pay on time. And I believe in New Jersey you get a 5-day grace period. So if it's due on the 1st, you have until the 5th of business day.
Yeah.
And you continue to pay on the 6th, the 10th, or whatever, they can evict you for doing that consistently. This says conversion to condominium or cooperative. And if the owner wants to live in the apartment or house, they can give you a notice to quit. But they, if I rent out my apartment and my house, my 2-family, as an example, and I want to move back in, I can tell the tenant to leave. I have to give them 2 months notice, a notice to quit before I can go in. If this says if there's a written lease, the eviction suit cannot be filed until after the lease expires. If the tenant loses a job that includes rental unit, so if the tenant has a job that like maintenance or whatever of the building, and it says that you could live there at rent free, that you can get a notice to quit. It must be served at least 3 days before filing an eviction suit. But you still have to go to landlord-tenant court to get the person out. If you're convicted of a drug offense, that's another grounds for eviction. Must be served on the tenant at least 3 days before filing the eviction suit.
Can we start right there? I got a question.
Yep.
So they could deny you the apartment that you want to rent because of a drug conviction?
You have no. If you have a drug conviction, could you text Erin and tell her I'm in the middle of the podcast, please? You got your phone? Oh, Salton, can you text Erin, please? If you're convicted of a drug offense while you're in the apartment.
Oh, like if you caught a conviction of a drug offense while you had the apartment.
That's just like sometimes like when like
a job.
No, like if a lot of times it's happened where like the grandmother might have the apartment in the I guess I'll say like in the projects or whatever, and then she has a grandson or whatever, and he comes in and he is accused of selling drugs or is convicted of selling drugs in that house, and the house gets raided and all that. She could be asked to leave out of there.
Yeah.
Because of that drug conviction, even though she's not the one that committed the offense.
And he wasn't added on to the lease anyway.
The tenant can be evicted for letting a drug offender live in the apartment. Must know that the person has been convicted. If not, the tenant cannot be evicted. And if you look at this little pamphlet that we are referring you to in the comments, it tells you all the different situations where you can be evicted if somebody that you let in your house sells drugs and they're convicted. So look at that. If you're convicted of assaulting, attacking, or threatening the landlord, dang, that you still got to serve the tenant with a 3-day notice. Oh, man, shoot,
they covering.
And then engaging or being involved in drug activity, theft, or assaults or threat against the landlord, same thing. That's P. Conviction of theft. Basically, if you get convicted of anything, yeah. So those are the reasons that are in there. And then in chapter 10, it gives you all the defenses that you could have to an eviction. They're all listed there. And if your landlord, this is an interesting one. If your landlord, if you have live in an apartment building with, I believe it's
They said, my man said, even when you purchase a house, they do the same thing.
They do what?
Go through all the list of. No.
I don't understand what that means. What did he exactly say on there?
I guess he just responded to some of the stuff that you read. I don't know exactly what direction.
What does he say?
He just says when you buy a house, they do the same thing.
Well, I don't really know what that means, so I can't really get further into it.
You might have to elaborate on that a little bit more.
What I was getting ready to say, if you live in an apartment building with a certain number of apartments in there, before your landlord can evict you, he has to prove that he's registered with the city. I'm trying to find this. Failure to register. There's something called the registration law, and it prevents a landlord from evicting you if the building is not properly registered. But it has to be a certain amount of buildings in the apartment, and they have to show that they're registered.
Units.
Yes. And if they're not registered properly, then when they go to landlord-tenant court to try to evict you, then the judge is not going to hear it.
Oh,
and
wow.
Let me try to find out.
Explain that again to the people.
Let me try to find out where it is in here. I think it was at the beginning. We might have to continue this later on because I spent the whole time telling you about my dang situations.
What we down to?
We're down to 10 minutes. Oh, here it is right here. The Landlord Registration Act. Hold up. I just saw it. Here it is.
This is new to me.
The law requires landlords who rent houses. I think it's anything over 2 units in an apartment or house that the owner does not occupy. So if I have a 2-family and I live there and I rent the other apartment, it doesn't apply to me. But if I don't live there and I rent 2 of the apartments, I think it applies. But anyway, the law requires landlords who rent houses, apartments, or buildings to register certain information with the clerk of the city or town where the building is located. Oh, here it is right here. If your building contains 3 or more apartments, the landlord also must register with the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs in Trenton. That's Trenton, New Jersey, because we're in New Jersey here. The law requires that the landlord list his or her name and address and the telephone number of someone, such as the superintendent, janitor, or other person who can be reached at any time and who is responsible for ordering emergency and receiving complaints from tenants. The landlord must display this information on the property, so they got to show it, in a place where tenants can see. And the landlord must give this information in writing to each tenant. And they're citing NJSA 46:8- tenant court, and they try to evict you. Have this, they cannot evict you because the judge is not going to hear it.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna use that to my advantage one day.
And then there may also be, under some circumstances, a way that you can get. I'm gonna try to take it to the beginning. You might be able to get some money back.
Oh, that's the most important part.
Maybe.
Just wait for that. We'll be down to 8 minutes.
Let me throw something else at you that talks about the security deposit, because this is another way that if you don't have your rent for a particular month or so, the landlord has to. And if you look at this little pamphlet, look at chapter 3, which I think starts on page 11, and it's going to tell you. I'm trying to summarize it. If your landlord has to put your security deposit, and it has to be above a certain number of apartments, and it's got to be not seasonal property. But if the landlord has to put your security deposit in a bank, they have to notify you in writing that it's in the bank. If they don't do this, I think they have 30 days from you entering the apartment or signing the lease, or if they don't do this, then you're able to use your security deposit. You have to send them a letter in writing and say, apply my security deposit to my rent, because you failed to notify me of where you put my security deposit. And once you apply it to your rent, what are you laughing about? You gonna do that tonight? Once you apply, wait, hold up.
There's so many landlords that's getting over that these tenants don't know. You don't even know this.
You don't know it.
You don't know nothing about this.
Read this book.
And
show it to him again.
Yeah, please, because I'm taking the copy back myself.
And listen, if you apply your rent under this under this section that I'm telling you about, they cannot. If you apply your security deposit to your rent, so say for instance I'm a month behind and I can't come up with no money, and I look on my lease and I look through all my papers and my landlord didn't tell me that he put my security deposit in the bank, then I get to write him a letter and say, apply my security deposit to this month's rent that I'm late for. And he's got to do it, and he can't ask you for no more security deposit. Check that out, because I done used that a few times.
Oh, did you?
I did.
Thank you for the late notice.
What you mean?
She knew all along.
I give you all the information.
She knew all along.
That's under chapter 3. And then I wish I could find and that's important. And then also, if your landlord is renting you a property illegally, meaning it's like down in the basement somewhere, and you ain't, you don't have the front door egress and the back door egress, because you got to have two way in and out.
Can't have one.
You can call the city on them. If you have any problems with repairs and everything, and you want to hold your rent and all that whatnot, call the city on them. If the city says, okay, this is a legal apartment, they got to pay for you to relocate 6 months time your rent.
Oh, wow. Damn.
And that's it.
I might as well get this studying right now.
Yeah, get to studying, y'all. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you got to pay. We're not doing this as a way for you not to pay your rent.
No, this is not no way.
This is a way to show you what your rights are, in case you get into a situation and you might have to utilize some of these things.
Yeah, because the landlord don't tell you none of this.
Nobody tells you any of this. And then let me tell you what I just read too. And y'all, we'll open the floor the next time we come back, if anybody's got any questions, because I feel like I rushed through that. I shouldn't have told y'all my stories, because I feel like we took up valuable time talking about me.
Yes, we did.
But wait a minute. What you gonna talk about Shakira as well?
We gonna talk about Shakira off the air. Yeah, I would get you.
Oh God! That's so funny. So now listen. Look what I found. Also, I found a new law, and this is called a new law. A new law awards attorney fees to New Jersey residential tenants. So you know when you go to court and your landlord prevails, you got to pay attorney fees.
Yeah.
Now they saying that you could put that in the lease, but if you put that in the lease, you also got to put in if the tenant prevails, the tenant gets attorney fees. Does that make sense to you?
No, but what if the tenant don't have an attorney?
I guess it says the
fee go to him or her?
If they do have an attorney, they get attorney. If they got to hire an attorney, they get attorney fees. It says the law took effect on January 21, 2014 and shall apply to all leases going forward February 1. So it's not really new, but it said if and it has to say this. This is what it's got to say. This is if they got a clause for attorney landlord attorney fee awards. It has to say if the tenant is successful in any action or summary proceeding arising out of this lease, the tenant shall recover attorney fees or expenses or both from the landlord to the same extent that the landlord is entitled to recover attorney fees or expenses or both as provided in this lease. And it says the typeface must be at least 11 points and one size larger than the rest of the lease clause. It says it right here. Now I got this from, I just Googled this. It says a new law awards attorney fees to New Jersey guys from AVO, AVVO, and it says 5/26
2019.
Yeah. So read that. I mean, this is what it says. I ain't make it up.
And this valuable to all people that's tenants and landlords because we all go through some issues. We all going through problems with the landlord. And the landlord going through problems with the tenants.
Where we at? 5?
Can't exempt the landlord out.
Yeah. 4.
Oh, okay. So maybe we'll continue this.
I think it should be a continuation.
Okay, we can continue talking about this. But again, we can't address your own personal situation. This is just a general situation. And maybe he can elaborate on what he was talking about. And I thought I saw something else there, Hamid, but I don't know exactly what he was saying. But
I had a question about a landlord.
Okay, so Shakira has a question. So we'll address all of that at our next podcast. And we thank you guys all for listening in. You got something to say? Because I'm always talking. I feel like after I end
this is good information. I appreciate this. I kind of looked at it. I judged it before we even talked about it.
How did you judge it?
I judged it that it was like a boring topic to me.
Knowledge is never boring.
I apologize. I apologize.
Anything that you have to learn is never boring.
Yeah. So
I had to learn.
don't judge a book by its cover. It's not good.
I can't push that button. Bye, y'all. See you next time.
And
Go live.
And live.
This one?
Yeah. Share. Yeah, that was a good one, son. I like that. Hold on, we gotta attack. Attack. Bring the hand out.
How you gonna attack? Let me tell you about this old
No.
Let me tell you, okay?
That old lady was
really
paying
could have
rent.
left that lady out.
Alright, but she was paying rent.
She's still on.
Don't be nuts. Oh, you want a Nevo? Yeah, hit the Nevo.
Wait,
How this is going out?
She ain't right. Get a piece of candy. Salty, how you stop this? Man, that was funny. Who you gonna do?
Hit the red button.
better get savvy on this.
Right, she was paying the rent. It don't matter what you have with her.
Let me tell you.
You stated that she was